Although North Korea allows tourism, it's more like a state-controlled visit. Tourists can only see what the government wants them to see, and they have no freedom to explore on their own. Every picture taken must be approved by a guide. But sometimes, tourists outsmart the system. Let's take a look at some photos that have been smuggled out of the country. Number 1. Prison camp. North Korea has arguably the most brutal prison camps. These aren't places to keep criminals off the streets or to rehabilitate anyone. They are arguably worse than Soviet-era gulags made to isolate people and deprive them of basic human rights. North Korea keeps denying the existence of political camps, but satellite images tell a different story. Not only do these camps exist, but they have been growing over the years. The prisoners endure such hard labor that many don't make it out alive. This leaked photo from one of the camps shows 2 prisoners carrying a bucket of pebbles as part of their labor. While this might not seem too harsh at first glance, the camp's remote locations and restricted access make it nearly impossible to document the true brutality. Testimonies from those who miraculously escaped, and even a former prison guard, An Myong-chol, shed light on the gruesome reality.
거기에 수감 인원이 약 30만 명 가까이 됐습니다.
From starvation to beatings, the lives of these prisoners are horrific. Number 2. Under construction. North Korean guides are strict about not letting tourists take pictures of anything unfinished, whether it's buildings or paintings. They say it doesn't represent the beauty of the country, but maybe they are trying to hide the low safety standards. Just look at this worker. He is hanging on a rope like a circus performer, and none of the workers are wearing any protective gear. Number 3. Child labor. This leaked picture shows small children working on a farm. What's so disturbing is that these kids are forced to work as part of their education. The North Korean government makes children collect scrap iron, help with agricultural labor like planting corn and sowing, work on construction projects, and even maintain railroads. Some parents reportedly bribe teachers to stop sending their children to school, where they are forced into labor. Kids as young as 5 work up to 10 hours in scorching heat. It's even tougher for orphans, who live in shelters with a military-like lifestyle and are made to do even more labor. At an age when they should be playing and learning, these harsh rules rob them of their childhood and endanger their education, physical health, and emotional well-being. Number 4. Malnourished. In North Korea, more than 45% of the population is undernourished. This picture of 2 young kids who are around 10 years old but look like they are 4 is proof of the battle North Koreans face with starvation. In the mid-1900s, the food crisis peaked and hundreds of thousands died of starvation. Even today, about 8 out of every 100 people die each year from lack of food. The class division in North Korea lets the elite live comfortably while hiding the suffering of people outside Pyongyang from the world's eyes. A secretive reporter managed to smuggle out an interview with a young woman so weak she could barely talk.
어? 그런 거? 아버지 뭐 어디? 엄마.
Shortly after the interview, she was found dead in a cornfield during harvest season, probably trying to find some raw corn to eat. And what's even more heartbreaking is that there are hundreds of thousands of such stories happening each year in North Korea. Number 5. Frustrated soldier. The North Korean regime loves showing off its military might with flashy parades and propaganda videos. But did you know more than a quarter of its population is active in the nation's army? It's not because they love their army so much. Every single North Korean who reaches the age of 17 has to serve in the army, 10 years for men and 7 years for women. These young men and women don't just go through extensive military drills, they also do manual labor and farming. Look at this soldier not having the time of his life, right? Soldiers live in overcrowded rooms with poor ventilation and often have to work for their own food. which leaves them malnourished at times. No wonder this guy looks frustrated. So, the next time you see a North Korean military parade, remember what's really going on behind the scenes with these soldiers. Number 6. Empty structures. Every country has buildings under construction or abandoned for various reasons, but North Korea doesn't let tourists capture images of these sites. This smuggled photo shows the real situation of numerous skyscrapers in North Korea. It's a pretty eerie sight. Lots of high-rise apartments, many of them empty. Economic instability has left some projects unfinished, and even the ones that are finished seem empty because they are unreliable. The good quality apartments are controlled by the government, which decides who gets to live there. Meanwhile, other buildings, despite their modern exteriors, have water problems, and residents have to use the stairs because unpredictable power cuts make elevators unsafe. The North Korean government keeps building more high-rise buildings to show off their supposed progress, but they don't seem to care whether people actually live in them or not. Number 7. Only advertisement. Billboards usually bring out the creativity in brands, making their ads super eye-catching. But in North Korea, you won't find ads for brands. Instead, all the space is used for propaganda, praising the Kim regime, their military, and a lot of anti-US messages. With restricted internet access and just a handful of authorized TV channels, these propaganda posters are an effective tool for reaching the public and spreading information. And if you think one can avoid them by closing their eyes, think again. The government has another trick under its sleeve. They play propaganda messages on loudspeakers mounted on cars that drive around the city. Tourists have reported waking up early in the morning to the sound of loud propaganda songs. So no matter where residents go or what they do, they are constantly reminded of their dear leader and his messages. Number 8. Unusual playground. If you hate traffic jams and blaring horns, North Korea might seem like a paradise, as long as you are okay with giving up your freedom. It is estimated that only about 2% of the population owns cars, and that includes high-level government officials and elites. This leaves the big roads so empty that they become playgrounds for kids. Sure, Pyongyang has more cars now than a few years ago, but the majority of people still rely on bicycles or public transport. The government has built wide roads to showcase a prosperous, highly developed nation. However, due to international sanctions and strict government control, the average North Korean is still deprived of the privilege of owning a car. Number 9. Jangmadang. North Korea keeps a tight grip on the economy, controlling what people can sell and how much profit they can make. Yet, human resilience shines even under severe oppression, and the black markets of Jangmadang are proof of that. These markets emerged in the 1990s, when North Korea's public distribution system collapsed, and local communities started forming private bazaars. Initially, they sold edible goods and traded items, but over time, they expanded to include diverse goods like clothing and electronics. Operating outside the state's sanctioned economy is illegal, but it turns out these markets help the government a bit with the economy, so there's a bit of leniency. Number 10. Medical. This leaked footage shows a man bringing a blanket to the hospital. Why? Because North Korea's free healthcare system is more like a place where you get sicker. Hospitals for the general public lack basic medical equipment, and people often have to bring their own supplies, like this man with his blanket. Hospital beds are crammed into rooms, and they are so full that people sometimes have to lie down in the hallways. These horrifying conditions would be impossible to film and smuggle out, but outspoken defector Yeonmi Park shared that nurses often use a single syringe for all patients. Instead of reallocating funds to healthcare, the North Korean government blames sanctions for the lack of basic medical supplies. Even the most sensitive areas, like operating theaters, lack modern equipment and surgeons perform operations without sterile gloves, putting both patients and themselves at greater risk. Number 11, check. Taking pictures of soldiers in North Korea is a big no-no, especially if they are caught relaxing. There are tons of rules about what you can and can't photograph, and soldiers will double-check all your data before you leave the country. So why not sneak a photo they don't want you to have while they are busy checking your stuff? Freedom and privacy are two things North Koreans are deprived of. Tourists might get slightly better treatment to maintain the country's false good image, but they still have no freedom or privacy. North Korean customs officers go through everything you bring into the country and everything you take out. This leaves tourists hiding memory cards in odd places like their socks to smuggle these pictures out of North Korea at great risk. Number 12, forced labor. So far, we have seen school kids, military soldiers, and prisoners doing unpaid labor, but that doesn't mean everyone else is immune. These women fixing potholes were assigned by the government to do the work. And if the government doesn't care about kids' ages, do you think they'll care about elderly people? They just want everyone in the country to work for free to build their economy. This kind of forced labor dominates the lives of average North Koreans so much that they don't even see it as bad anymore. It's just part of their daily lives. Initially, North Korea tried to show the world how their citizens voluntarily came forward to help the community, but soon realized nobody was buying their propaganda. It only made them look bad, so they started hiding it from the world, like most things they do. The workers, left with no choice, have to do unpaid work for the government and then find some sideline work to make money to survive. Number 13, Beggar. North Korea claims to provide housing for everyone, but the quality varies wildly based on its strict class system. While they say there are no homeless people, young children called kotejebi can be found wandering the streets. Tourists are kept away from these areas, and taking photos of these children is a serious crime. However, one photographer managed to capture an image of a young boy begging for food at a railway station. The term kotejebi means flying sparrows, reflecting how these children move from place to place searching for food. They often hang out in crowded areas like train stations and are known to pickpocket and steal. Not all kotejebi are orphans. Some are abandoned by their parents or run away due to poverty. In Pyongyang, the police actively suppress free movement, which is why tourist videos often show a sanitized version of North Korea without any homeless people. This helps the government maintain its propaganda of a prosperous nation. But hey, homelessness exists everywhere, right? Including developed countries like the USA, but North Korea tries to hide anything that doesn't fit its narrative. Number 14, no gas. North Korea has around 30,000 vehicles for its 25 million people, giving it the lowest car ownership rate in the world. Even so, there isn't enough fuel for all these cars due to sanctions making gasoline scarce. While the elites enjoy gasoline, rural areas have to improvise with old-school methods that you won't see anywhere else. When it's time to refuel, they shove wood into a firebox, and the truck runs. The wood burns with limited oxygen, creating gas that is then piped into the engines, just like gasoline. It's a throwback to old-fashioned methods, but it's the only way North Koreans can keep their trucks running without gasoline. So, if you see a truck in North Korea that looks like it's on fire, don't worry, it's just a wood gas-powered vehicle getting around. Number 15, Q. Public transport can be challenging worldwide, but what North Koreans endure is on another level. Public transport is the only way for ordinary citizens to get around quickly. This leaked photo shows people in enormous lines waiting to get on the trolley bus just to get to and from work. Sometimes they wait for hours. Some of these overcrowded trolley buses are super old, like from the 1960s. Even though newer models have been introduced and checked out by the dear leader himself, frequent blackouts in the city make it pointless to have more buses if they won't work. Number 16. Road. Pyongyang, the capital of North Korea, gets most of the funding, resulting in empty wide roads that are quite the sight. But don't be fooled into thinking the whole country looks like this. Those are some of the only proper highways in North Korea. Outside the capital, in most rural areas, there are no real roads, just unpaved paths made of dirt and gravel. With most of the population unable to afford cars, the government doesn't see the need to build proper roads in rural areas. This huge difference between Pyongyang and the rest of the country shows North Korea's uneven development and lack of infrastructure. Number 17. Memes. Memes in a museum? Don't think this picture is some kind of joke by pranksters. This photo was taken from a YouTube video posted by a genuine North Korean regime-backed channel, which mostly featured state-run news. The video was titled, "Kim Jong-un Recognized and Loved Worldwide." A few frames in, the video showed a museum wall with 3 different pictures, basically memes about North Korea's supreme leader. And it's not like they hung up the memes as a joke or to show how Americans disrespect their leader as part of anti-US propaganda. They displayed them to show people how popular and well-respected their marshal is worldwide. The leftmost meme has a plaque beneath it that roughly translates to their leader being mentioned in American Time magazine. Without knowing what Lil Kim refers to, they took it as a sign of respect. The middle meme, mocking the resemblance between Chaz Bono and Kim Jong-un, has a plaque stating their leader was mentioned on the internet as the new leader of Joseon State, which means all of Korea, including the South. The video was deleted soon after, but the damage was already done, and internet users managed to keep it saved. Let's hope whoever the culprits were didn't get caught, because they are definitely getting fired for this. I mean, literally. Number 18, bicycle. With no cars and no proper public transport, you might wonder what people use to get around outside of Pyongyang. The answer? Bicycles. It's a tiring mode of transportation, with people in rural areas pedaling long distances, often carrying cargo. Even in Pyongyang, bicycles are very common. When riding long distances, people take short breaks to rest. The government doesn't like tourists taking pictures of citizens looking worn out, sitting on street corners. Number 19. Inside. The Ryugyong Hotel is the tallest building in North Korea. This pyramid-shaped skyscraper is impossible to miss when looking at Pyongyang's skyline. The construction of this massive structure began more than 35 years ago, but still hasn't hosted any guests. Why? Because the government ran out of money and resources to finish the interior. Just like many other rundown apartments in Pyongyang, the tallest building in the country has a captivating exterior, now with screens to advertise propaganda. But inside, it's just ruins. This picture gives a rare look inside the skyscraper that can be seen from miles away, perfectly depicting what the Hermit Kingdom does best, showing the world a facade of paradise while hiding the haunting reality within. Number 20. Surprising. While touring Hamhung, North Korea, this photographer snapped a picture of a young girl wearing a pretty ironic shirt. The government officially promotes atheism, and unofficially, basically, everyone is forced to worship the Kim family with their demigod status. They do have a few churches, but they are just for show, pretending to allow religious freedom. In reality, openly practicing any religion is considered a threat to Kim's regime, and people can end up in prison for it. Tourists can't even bring Bibles into the country, though they do have their own approved versions, probably with translations that support the regime. Hamhung is closer to China, and a lot of goods are smuggled into North Korea from there. So it makes sense they got hold of this Chinese-made shirt. Lucky for the girl, the soldiers can't read English because openly advertising that someone other than the dear leader is your lord is a crime in North Korea. Number 21, not behind. By 1992, there were around 40,000 statues of the founder of the Kim dynasty, Kim Il-sung, And the regime is crazy about these statues. They have some strict rules about taking pictures of these statues. You can't take a half picture. You need to include the whole statue from head to toe. Taking a picture from the back? That's the biggest disrespect according to their rules. Tourists must show the same respect for the leader's statue as every other citizen. This means doing a mandatory bow and not running around imitating gestures of the former leaders or making funny faces. Trying to sit on the ground or kneeling is also considered extremely offensive and disrespectful. In order to take a full-length picture, you have to move back. So this picture from the back of the statue is one of a kind, and no one should try to take this risk again. Number 23, Computer Lab. The guides love it when tourists take pictures showing kids in North Korea with computers. But with no electricity to power them, they would want you to delete the photo. Thanks to digital memory cards, this photographer was able to keep this picture of a girl pretending to type on a computer that's turned off. People in North Korea are trained to put on a show for foreigners. This girl, just like others in the computer lab visited by tourists, including NBA star Dennis Rodman, was following the script. Look at that man just staring at a blank Google screen. It is probably his first time looking at a search engine. Even if North Korea convinces the world that everyone there has a computer, it doesn't change the fact that they only have access to an intranet called Kwangmyong, designed solely for domestic use with no access to any global websites. Number 24, waste trucks. This picture might look like just some ordinary trucks, but there's nothing ordinary about what they're carrying. The increasing poverty in North Korea has left farmers with no manure to fertilize their crops. To solve this problem, the government asked each citizen to produce an unrealistic amount of manure. The bizarre part? They urged citizens to make this manure using their own waste. Yep, you heard it right. They're using fertilizers made of human waste for the crops they eat. These lined-up trucks have collected the homemade manure from local institutions, and now they are on their way to the farmlands. This collection happens every January, and in 2021, when people couldn't meet the quotas, Kim Jong-un declared that anyone failing to meet the requirement would be banned from entering the markets. Number 25, Metro. The Pyongyang Metro is the deepest in the world. An elevator ride from the platform to the street is around 4 minutes long. It's like being 36 stories underground. This serves a dual purpose, acting as both a metro system and a bomb shelter. Although taking photos of the metro platform itself isn't illegal, most pictures don't show the tunnel where the train goes. When this photographer took a picture, he was stopped and asked to delete it. But he managed to smuggle it out of North Korea, showing how even the most mundane things are considered a threat to the nation's image by North Korean authorities. That's a wrap on our journey through the pictures smuggled out of North Korea at great risk. Which of these did you find most surprising, and what are your thoughts on it? Let me know in the comments below. Unlike North Koreans who won't have access to this video anytime soon, you can smash the like button and hit subscribe. So don't wait. Also, hit that bell icon so you get notified every time I upload videos just for you. Until next time, goodbye.